Hello and welcome to Pastor's Perspective. I'm your host, Brian Perez. I seem to be missing an ear. I don't know what's going on here. There's no sound coming out of my left on my... We'll fix it later. It's okay. We can get through it. It's only an hour. Hi, welcome to the show. We are here until 4 o'clock, taking your questions about the Bible, the Christian faith, just about anything that's on your mind. Give us a call. 888-564-6173 is our number. And answering your questions today, we've got Pastor Brian Brodersen, the pastor emeritus of Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California. So are you also the pastor emeritus of Calvary Vista? Is that how that works? That was so long ago, but how does that... how long are you an emeritus? I don't even know.
Well, I think an emeritus, is, it is an actual position at a particular place. So
got it.
Yeah. When I left Vista 30 years ago, I moved on and, went and started another church.
Got it. Yes.
Yeah. So, I haven't moved on. I'm still here.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Yes. And he's also doing the echoesofmercy.com thing.
Emeritus, I think you can just say anything you want when you're a pastor emeritus. You can just make it up as you go.
It's super old and, you just say stuff.
Super old, super wise is part of it,
And very good looking, very handsome guy.
Yeah. Pastor emeritus always has to keep himself sharp.
I thought you were going to say Pastor Emeritus always has to be a handsome guy.
Well, that's what I meant. Sharp looking.
Sharp looking.
Yeah, he was
sharp-dressed man.
Humble, which is another trait of a Pastor Emeritus.
That other voice is Phil Metzger. He's the pastor of Calvary San Diego. Both guys are here until 4 o'clock to answer the questions you have about, like I said, the Bible, the Christian faith, just about anything that's on your mind, prayer, etc. 888-564-6173.
Okay, I hate to do, personal business on live radio, but I just have to ask Phil one simple question. Did you get sorted out with the Lima trip?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, done.
Good. When I got that email the other day, because you're telling me, we're going and it's exciting, and then they're like, hey, we haven't heard from Phil. Is he still going to come?
I realized there's a drive they wanted me to put things into, and I put it in the wrong part of the drive. So they weren't seeing it, and it seemed like so it's all squared away.
Great.
We're good to go.
Awesome. Yeah, they don't even make me put anything anywhere because they know, like, Brian's
You're
old.
emeritus.
Brian's old. Emeritus people don't do that complicated technical stuff.
Right. Well, I'm not emeritus, but it was real close to that right there, buddy. I was so excited for this conference that we're going to be down at in Lima. What a fun time that's going to be.
Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be amazing. It's always...
This is our first time to South America.
Yes, I know.
We can't wait.
I am predicting
first of many, you think?
First of many, yes.
Okay, good.
Yep.
I receive it. I'm ready. Let's go.
Good. We're going to do it.
It's going to be exciting.
Brian's practicing for the Super Bowl. He's doing his hand signals here, sending plays into the team. What are you doing up there?
I'm communicating with the other room, with the engineer, Johnny, there to find out, because I fixed it. Now I can hear out of both ears, which is good.
You can all be happy now, because now that my team has been promptly eliminated, I'm a Rams guy. I always stay true to my state. The Rams left me, but they left me back in the 80s and 90s, but I won't leave them now. So I am now a fan. So everybody over there can, be okay now. Tell them all to be okay. We're good.
Yeah, we're good. We're
good.
Everybody's happy.
Yep.
We can move on now because Phil is rooting for the Rams.
Well, I was in Seattle the day before, 2 days before the game, and speaking at a conference. And so I had to say, be charitable to me,
Well, and fun. Jordan Taylor, our good friend, Jordan got some really great seats, some tickets for the game. So he flew up and took his dad and his brother and his sister, and they're diehard Seahawk fans. So this was like just short of going to heaven for them. So I saw Jordan a few minutes ago, and he's just floating around the campus.
Can imagine.
But I'm probably going to float to the Super Bowl, man. These dudes are tough.
Yeah, but I told him, hey, watch out. Remember that prophecy about the goat that came across and smote that other animal and just literally obliterated it, that story in Daniel. I know it had to do with Alexander the Great, but I'm applying
I feel like we're misappropriating.
I'm
This is
applying it
what
to
you
the
can do.
Rams.
When you're emeritus, you can misappropriate Bible stories.
Hey, it was a ram, so I'm
It
applying
was a ram. You're right. You're right.
Now everybody's looking that up in the book of Daniel. How fun. All right. You can also send us your questions by scanning the QR code there. If you're watching us on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, scan that code. It'll take you right to the Pastor's Perspective page at kwave.com, where you can fill out the form, and that gets your question to us. But it doesn't get your question to us same day. So we're not going to see your question before the show ends at 4. We might use it tomorrow. Who knows? But this is one that was sent in by Darius, who is in Lewisville, Texas, and he writes, I know that prayer is something that is central and vital to the experience of the Christian life, yet I often find it difficult to remain consistently devoted to it. When I do pray, it often feels like I drift into just talking to myself and musing in my own head. I struggle to stay focused and think of things to pray for, often feeling like I'm just praying for any random thing that comes to mind just to keep the prayer going. Do you have any advice for how I can better cultivate my prayer life to deepen my relationship with God? Brian, what do you say to Darius?
Well, Darius, the first thing I would say is you're not alone. A lot of people struggle with those things. I struggle with those things at times in my my times of prayer.
Did you say struggle or struggled?
Struggle.
Yes. So
Yes.
it's an ongoing. Yeah, it happens. Yeah, I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, I struggle with
you could
that.
be the pastor emeritus,
30 years ago.
wise
but,
and all, and it still happens.
as pastor emeritus, you don't struggle with those things. You don't struggle with anything.
You overcome everything. Yes.
Okay, so no, but I said struggle. Yes, I struggle with those things. And Phil does too, and you do too. And we all do at times. So to stay focused, I think, a couple things I would say. I would say sometimes praying out loud kind of helps. If you're praying just kind of silently in your head, it's easy for your thoughts to just kind of go here, there, and everywhere, So I think if you pray out loud, I think also if you have somewhat of a prayer list, so you just write down a few things, and that way you can stay focused. Like, before you pray, think about, okay, these are the things that I really want to pray about today, and then stick with that. I think that'll help you keep focused. And prayer, Phil, prayer is a battle. You think of Paul's words about Epaphras. He says Epaphras labors for you in prayer, talking to the Colossians. And it's a labor. It is a struggle. It is a battle. I think the enemy, he surely doesn't like anybody praying. So he will disrupt, he will distract, he will do all kinds of things to try to keep us from that. And then the other thing I would say too is, try to get some time regularly where you pray with somebody else, because praying with somebody else can really, really be helpful as well. So, and this might help too. I just wrote an article for CalvaryChapel.com, and it's a 2-part article. The first part came out today on this very subject. So the title of the first part of it is Jesus, Prayer, and You. So we're looking at Luke really, because Luke highlights the humanity of Jesus, he ends up highlighting the prayer life of Jesus. So basically we're looking at the prayer life of Jesus and being encouraged through that. So maybe check that out. Phil, what do you think?
Oh, I love that whole answer. And I was like, gosh, that seems so fresh. Now I know why. You were writing on this right now. Seriously, that was great. See, when you're emeritus, you have time to write on stuff too, like this. Now, being silly, he's always writing. Brian's been writing for 40 years.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it all. I was going to maybe just something else to throw into this would be like, I'm a big believer in trying to pray the Lord's Prayer. And I know some people just like to pray it exactly, like just pray the Lord's Prayer. And I think that's great. But I actually mean it to mean use that as your model for prayer, right? So Jesus says, "Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name." So, okay, I'm going to start my time of praying by being hyper-focused on God. Like I'm not gonna let myself get distracted from anything, but just thinking about who God is and why He's worthy to be praised. And then Your kingdom come, Your will be done. So now I'm praying for God's will. So now I'm connecting my prayer life to needing to know the Word of God better. Like who is God, right? How do I say that God is to be hallowed? Do I know Him well enough to know why He should receive glory? Do I know His will? Am I praying His will? And I don't mean this thing in, is it Darius? Is that his name that wrote this in? I don't mean that in a vague way. I think what Brian said is so true. A list is so critical. But find ways to use the Lord's Prayer as like a template for how you pray. It'll keep you from being... from drifting, one, and two, it'll also keep you from being so hyper focused on just your needs, right? It forces us to think about God. It forces us to think about His will, forces me to think about how I pray for others. There's humility. There's just so much. So I love using the Lord's Prayer as a real template for my own personal prayer time.
Yeah, I think that is such a great idea. And I've done that in the past at times. And of course, taught on that as that exact thing, a template, really. Char was teaching on prayer recently, and he was, kind of really spent some time on the hallowed be your name, God's holy name, just kind of the who God is. And so yesterday, Cheryl and I we're going somewhere, and we get on the freeway, and I'm trying to do something on my phone. I'm trying to set up this thing, and all of a sudden she just decides we're going to pray. Okay, great, so that's good. We do that a lot, and she's such a great prayer. Sometimes I'm just like, you just pray, and I will agree. But anyway, she starts to pray, and I'm still piddling around trying to download this app on my phone, and all of a sudden she's like, would you stop that? We are talking to God, and hallowed be His name. What are you doing? Just piddling around with your phone? And I'm like, okay, gosh, I'm sorry. I mean, we're just driving actually, but I didn't know this was going to turn into a real intense prayer time, which it did, which was amazing, which was beautiful. But so, Brian, that is an example from yesterday of the struggle. The ongoing struggle.
The ongoing struggle. Yes, indeed. All right, Darius, thank you for sending in your question. That was a good one. You sent it in on the Pastor's Perspective page at kwave.com. Thank you for doing that. 888-564-6173 is our number. We are back live in the studio today. Took the day off yesterday for the Martin Luther King holiday, but we're back today, so call in, 888-564-6173. Here's another question that was submitted online, this one through the Pastor's Perspective Facebook page using Messenger. It's from Artie, who wants to know, why is Satan called a dragon? Phil, what do you say to Artie?
I unmute my mic. Sorry about that. Why is he called a dragon? I think it's just symbolic. It's I don't know that it's like we have to read deeper beyond that, other than like it was just meant to be imagery of the devil. He's called a serpent in the book of Genesis early on. And so that dragon of old, I think it's imagery pointing us to the fact that this is that ancient created being who is pitted himself against God. I don't know, Brian, do you know of any specific imagery purpose for that?
I think that's great. I mean, I do think that's the connection, of course, is, in Revelation, where that's where you have the references to the dragon. It tells us specifically we're talking about that serpent of old, the devil and Satan. So making the connection back to Genesis, yeah. And in Genesis, of course, he appears in some sense, as a serpent. I mean, there's debate about just exactly what this being was like. Like, we think of a serpent like a snake, but was it more like a dragon? And we just don't know. But I think, the Hebrew is a shining one, but it could have different ways to understand it. But I think the Greek is pretty clear, though, about the serpent and the dragon. So,
yeah, I think I had heard that the serpent had wings, and then so when God cursed the serpent, he now has to slither around everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, Artie, thanks for sending in your question on the Pastor's Perspective Facebook Messenger. Hey, we were talking about Peru a little bit ago, and Rose in Corona just got back from Peru. She's listening to us on the K-Wave app. Hi there, Rose. Thanks for calling 888-564-6173. How was it?
Well, hello. I'm so excited. I'm online. Oh, my God, I'm so nervous. But I just wanted to share that I'm from Peru. I went to Peru not too long ago after 55 years. And
Wow.
been a Christian for I want to say about a good 40 years, trying to look for the light always and couldn't find the light. I grew up Catholic, but I couldn't find the light. And anyways, this time that I went to Peru, I went with a mission to give my mother a better lifestyle because she was deteriorating. And I said, well, perhaps maybe if she goes back to her country, she'll feel better. So I left the United States with the idea of just taking care of her till the end of time. But I, little did I knew, it just makes me very emotional because it was wonderful. Every taxi that I would take in the jungle, I would ask people, how they doing, if they knew the Lord. And they didn't know him, but they're so hungry for him.
Yeah.
And, they pray the rosary, Catholic, most of them are.
Yeah.
But every time I would plant seed, they would just stop their car and they would just listen. And we would pray together. And I've done that so many times, all of the time, that 3 months that I was in the jungle.
Yeah.
And besides taking care of my mom, I was just doing that without even knowing. And it was just wonderful. Peru is beautiful. The people are beautiful, and the people is hungry. They're hungry for the word and the Lord and salvation. And and I'm so glad that you guys are going over there. And the Lord says, go all over the world and plant seeds. And that's our duty as Christians. That's that's what we're here for, to serve. We're not here to be served. We're here to serve one another, love one another.
Yeah, that's great.
And make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
Right now, everybody's hungry for the Lord. And little do they know, they don't know the Lord.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
Know him, though.
That's great, Rose. That's great that you had that experience, and that has. And I've been telling Phil this. That my experience in Peru and other South American countries, Central America, Mexico, even has just been like an openness that is so refreshing. Because people haven't really heard. Quite often, they haven't heard the true, unadulterated gospel, just the simple truth of God's great, great love for them and the great sacrifice of Jesus and, his destruction of death, and how just putting our faith in him, saves us for eternity, but also makes us alive spiritually in Christ. And I've had the same kinds of experiences, just wonderful, wonderful times. So, thanks for that story.
Yeah. Phil, anything to add?
Just gets me more and more excited for later in February. Can't wait.
Yeah. And Phil, both of us even together, we've been in places like that.
Yeah.
Where we've just sensed such an amazing openness. Phil's been to Africa a few times where I know it's similar. But yeah, I always think of, between Mexico and, the tip of Chile or Argentina, I mean, you got 1 billion people.
Right.
It's like,
yeah.
Lord, yes, thank you for this amazing opportunity. So
I almost feel like, I don't know about you, Brian, but I almost feel like a storm chaser, like once you've experienced God and you've seen God working with people like we have, you're just like, dude, I'm a storm chaser. I want to be a part of that. I want to be where that is.
Absolutely. Yep.
Great analogy. Rose, thanks for calling in today to Pastor's Perspective at 888-564-6173. Now we'll go to Bellflower and Beth listening on the K-Wave app as well. Hi, Beth. What's your question for the pastors today?
Well, I've heard different things from the time Jesus died on the cross until he returned 3 days later. Where was he at? What was he doing? I guess, does anybody know? Does it say in the Bible anywhere?
Phil Metzger.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I can tell you some ideas. I'll give you one that's pretty prevalent within a lot of kind of evangelical circles, and that is that Jesus went to this place that we call, and Jesus described as Abraham's bosom, where people who were waiting, who were righteous, who had put their faith in the coming Messiah before Jesus had come, all the way back to the times of Abraham, even before that, were living, kind of dwelling, waiting until the Messiah had come and made redemption possible, right? And because now that Jesus has died, he's opened up the gates to, heaven through his death. And so he came and he set the captives, is, the idea that we get there. I believe it's in the book of, is it 1 Peter or 2 Peter? I don't remember, Brian. 1 Peter?
Setting the captives.
He's setting the captives free.
Ephesians.
Like he descended, also ascended.
Ephesians 4.
Ephesians. Oh, well, I just taught 1st and 2 Peter. That's why I'm stuck there. So Ephesians 4.
But there is a passage in 1 Peter that kind of talks about a similar thing in 1 Peter.
It does,
right?
it? Okay. I was like, gosh, at this point, it's all everywhere. So the idea that Jesus went down and he brought them up into heaven is an idea that exists. Here's another one. We don't know. We don't exactly know what happened. And that's also, honestly, that's a very prevalent thought that we should sit with a little bit, that maybe we just don't fully know. What we do know is that he died and that he rose again. In terms of all the details in between, there's many who would say, we just don't know.
Brian?
Yeah, and there's another idea too, and it doesn't mean that it's one or the other. It could actually be both. That Jesus also, the Scripture talks about, he's offering himself as a sacrifice before God, and so that maybe there is some presentation before the Father, that Jesus presents himself to the Father, and that's a possibility too. Here's one also that is popular among some people that is absolutely not true, and that is that Jesus was fighting the devil, and he was taking the keys of hell and death away from Satan, and it was a tough. It was a tough fight. It was a close where there was a point where you weren't sure who was going to come out on top, but Jesus in the end, he won, and he wrestled the keys away from the devil and all of that. That's not what happened. So, but in certain circles, I mean, that is the story that you'll hear. You'll hear that Jesus went and he fought the devil.
Which circles? We want to make sure we stay far away from those.
These are like, kind of hyper-Pentecostal charismatic circles you'll hear. And not all of them, but
yeah.
I guess maybe in the hyper ones you will hear it a lot. But yeah. Yeah, so that one's...
I'm glad you addressed that.
Yeah, that one's not what happened.
Had you heard that before, Beth?
I had, and I thought I heard it like once, and it kind of just kept pressing on me. I thought, I'm just going to call in and ask the experts.
Okay, well, so we gave you two possibilities and a third impossibility.
Not possibility.
I'll choose door number 1, the first one.
That's good.
Thanks for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective.
And I think that, just to kind of go back to that for a second, because, we're saying adamantly that didn't happen. How do we know that didn't happen? Well, we know it didn't happen because Jesus said his very last words before he committed his spirit to his Father was, "It is finished." So the whole redemptive thing was finished the moment Jesus died. He didn't have to go down to hell and fight the devil for 3 days to kind of, finally wrap things up.
He didn't say, "It is finished," right after this.
Right.
Something like that.
It will be finished.
Yes. All right, 888-564-6173. And Daniel in Moreno Valley, you're next. Thank you for calling us today on Pastor's Perspective. Hello.
Hey, brothers.
Hey.
I'm glad you're out there answering questions. You asked, do you remember Joseph? He had called in about, I think it was Friday, about the age of accountability.
Yeah, I do remember something recent about the age of accountability, yeah.
So without an explicit passage, are we going off assumptions and speculation?
Yep,
Yes.
that's what we're doing.
So if that's true, are we allowed to speculate and assume things?
I think, yes, of course, but I think we just can't be dogmatic about it. You know, we can't say absolutely. You know, the only place we have any, I don't even think this is necessarily something that we can say this is it, but in the Jewish world, and this isn't even necessarily found anywhere in Scripture other than
Well, don't go there then.
it happened. You know, Jewish boys and girls at the age of 13, 12 or 13, they become a son or daughter of the law, a bar mitzvah or bas mitzvah. And I mean, we don't know that even existed at the time of Jesus, but so for them, that's the age of accountability. But, you know, we don't know. And so, but yes, we can speculate about things we don't know as long as we say we're speculating. And in the end, we don't know because the Bible doesn't specifically say.
Yeah. Phil?
Yeah, that's the very point of speculating, is that that's kind of part of the fun too. And I don't mean fun like silly, but like there's things in the Bible you're like, well, we're just not exactly sure. We're allowed to use our own like kind of common sense when there is common sense, or just thoughts. Yeah. So 13 was an age that was a big deal to the Jewish people. Maybe it matters. Maybe it doesn't. We don't know. That's the point of speculating. Obviously, we always, you know, when this ever comes up on the show, we talk about how, you know, we have kids maybe who are born with special needs, and that changes what would be an age of accountability. This is the point. There's no hard and fast in the Bible because people cannot be put into one box like that. Yeah. That would just be, it would be cruel to do that. And therefore the Bible does not do that. And so speculating is totally okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, you know, again, just by experience, we all know, let's just take 12 years old. We might know 12-year-olds that seem more like, man, this 12-year-old seems more like a 15-year-old. And then we might know other 12-year-olds that seem more like a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old. So maturity levels vary, you know, from age to age too. And I think that maturity levels are a factor when it comes to this. But that's all we're going to speculate about today on this topic.
Well, I just want to know why Daniel is anti-speculation.
Yeah, hold. Can I answer?
Well, yeah, tell us.
If the infant or those that are before the age of accountability are saved by grace, right? We all believe this.
Mm-hmm. Well, not everybody believes that, but I do.
Well, the Bible teaches that's how any of us are saved by grace.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's their only option, and they don't have the ability to live out that faith where we as adults are saved by grace, and our faith is lived out. Mm-hmm. So nothing has changed. They are saved by grace, so are we, and we live out our living faith.
Okay. So what does that mean?
What is your point?
Oh, no. That there's nothing different from the age. So there isn't an age of accountability because we're all. I just looked it up today. Psalm 143, verse 2. We're all under judgment. For none are righteous.
Yeah.
So there's only grace. That's what the Reformers talked about. That's how.
Yeah, but you have to receive grace, and you have to have the ability to comprehend your own sinful state and need in order to receive that. So, all right, well, that's enough of that conversation.
And the music's on anyway. We got to go to break. Thanks for calling us today on Pastor's Perspective. Elva, we're going to get to you when we come back. 888-564-6173. Grab an open line. We're here for 30 minutes more on Pastor's Perspective. We're back on Pastor's Perspective. 888-564-6173 is our number. I'm Brian Perez here with Pastors Brian Broderson and Phil Metzger. 888-564-6173 is our number. And this past Sunday, Back to Basics Live was back at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. How'd it go?
Yeah, it went well. Yeah, it was good. We had some new faces, which was nice. And we got through 7 verses in Romans chapter 1, which was good. You know, it's Romans 1 has kind of a lengthy introduction, and so we got through the first part of the introduction, and then we'll pick up next week and we'll finish that off. And yeah, so I said when we started, and I said to the group on Sunday night, up until this point with Luke and Acts, we've been going, a chapter a week, and sometimes even depending, we would go a little more, maybe even 2 chapters. But I said we're going to slow it down in Acts, in Romans, and take smaller chunks. So we did that, and we'll continue to do that, yeah.
So I just looked it up. The book of Romans has 433 verses. So at a pace of 7 verses a week, it's going to take you 62 weeks.
62 weeks.
A little over a year.
That's a little over a year, yeah.
It's not too bad.
I think we'll probably go a little faster than that. Maybe, but I have done it. I think the last time I taught Romans, it was a year and a half, that it took us to get through it. But yeah, do you know Romans is the longest of all the epistles? And that is it's at least one of the reasons why it's first in the New Testament. Probably because of the content as well. But what they would do is the longest, like in a corpus, in a group of letters that would be written. So Paul wrote several letters. So at a certain point, they put his letters together, and they would generally put the longest one first. So Romans has 16 chapters. 1 Corinthians has 16 chapters. Romans has more words.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
Because we often get that question. How did they decide which books to put in the Bible? So, I guess another question would be, how did they decide which order to put those?
And some people would argue that that Romans is first in the epistles because it's the first in importance. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't know that you could be dogmatic about that, but Romans is important. And I talked about the great and amazing impact that Romans has had on certain figures in church history: Augustine, Martin Luther, John Wesley, Chuck Smith, people like that.
I mean, but Romans is, you're not being dogmatic, but there's no way to, it's the seminal work of the Apostle Paul.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, it's and Acts had to go after the Gospels. Otherwise, we wouldn't even know what was going on.
Exactly.
We would be so confused, right? So Acts just carries the narrative of the Gospels, but then Romans just punches you in the face. And I mean that in a good way, just wow. Yeah,
it's just like, okay, this is Christianity right here. We're gonna lay it out for you. Yeah.
Nutshell. And then everything else is just complementing all of that. It's powerful.
Yeah.
So is that why Hebrews is in the Bible after 1st and 2nd Timothy? Because they're not sure who wrote Hebrews, so they figured, let's just put it right here.
Yeah, there's a scholarly debate about the authorship of Hebrews. So I don't know if you remember, but Don Stewart, he had a friend who wrote a thesis on why Paul wrote Hebrews, and I think Don was pretty convinced that Paul did write Hebrews. So there's a difference of opinion out there. My opinion is that he didn't. And then, so you have the Pauline epistles that end with Philemon, and then you go into Hebrews, and Hebrews is sort of a bridge from Paul to what are called the general epistles. Mm-hmm. And I think we talked about this recently. They're called general because they're not written to a specific church like Romans is, or like Corinthians is, or like Ephesians is, or whatever the case. So. Hebrews, an amazing book, but the introduction is so unlike everything else Paul wrote. The theology is quite Pauline, but I don't know. I tend to think that maybe Apollos, who was from people who really know Greek really well. They talk about the interesting sort of Alexandrian Greek of Hebrews, which would make sense for Apollos to be the author because he was an Alexandrian Jew. Mm. So anyway, what do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, the theology of Hebrews feels so Pauline, which would make sense because everyone was influenced by Pauline theology. That's a reality. So, but I agree. It's tough for me to, listen, I'm not a scholar in that area at all. So what do I know? But based on what I do know, I would say it's certainly Pauline influenced, but I'm not sure it's Paul.
Yeah.
But you're Dr. Phil.
Yeah. When you get that Dr. Phil thing is when you realize all the things you don't know. That's what that means. I know what I know, but I know what I don't know.
You learn something new every day here on Pastor's Perspective.
And it's
sometimes
always
more than
good
one thing.
in what we do to know what you don't know.
Right? That's the Socrates. I know that I know more than you because I know that I know nothing.
But then you start speculating.
Well, you can speculate. But there's a difference between speculation and
guessing, right? Speculation's educated.
Yeah. Or what dogmatism or something like that, where you're adamantly insisting on something, but you actually don't have the right information about it.
Mm-hmm. 888-564-6173. Let's go to Downey. Here is Elva, listening on FM 107.9 K-Wave. Welcome to Pastor's Perspective, Elva. And if you could turn your radio down a little bit there in the background so that I don't hear myself coming back through my headphones. It sounds weird.
Okay. Thank you for taking my call, Pastors. I just wanted to know the cultural context of that Bible verse that says, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name. If there's some kind of context that I don't know about, because sometimes they give me two different interpretations of what it means, so I just want to know what it means and how God is using it, how Jesus is using it.
What are the different interpretations that you hear?
Well, sometimes they use it where two or three are gathered in my name, like during worship, there God is, and the other one I'm reading about it right now, and it has to do with discipline. That's what I was taught all my life. So I'm reading it again, and I'm like, wait, this is talking about discipline for a believer that's sinning. And so, can you guys explain it to me a little bit better?
Yeah, well, I think you're doing pretty good. What you said is, those kind of are the same views that I've heard expressed. And I do think the context, like you're seeing as you're reading it, the context is church discipline. I mean, that's the whole thing. If a brother sins against you, go to him, tell him your fault between you and him. If he doesn't receive that, take with you 2 or 3 witnesses. If he doesn't receive that, then take it before the church. And then I think what's being communicated here by Jesus is that where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name. In other words, as you make your decision together, I'm going to be with you in making those decisions. And the context is dealing with the sin of a brother. So I think that is the context. But I also think that there's the principle that I will be with you when 2 or 3 are gathered in my name. I think that is also true, because there's other passages that encourage us and remind us that the Lord is present with his people when they gather. So for just one example, Psalm 22, the Lord inhabits the praises of his people. So that means that when we praise the Lord together collectively, he comes and is with us in that. And there are other passages that would say the same thing. What do you think, Phil?
Totally agree. I wanted to add to what you're talking about. The context of that passage too is kind of rooted in Old Testament, like civil law of, I was looking at Deuteronomy 19, don't convict anyone of a crime on the testimony of only one witness. So the importance of agreement comes when there's a few people that are engaged in this, not just he said, she said kind of a situation. And so I think, it's almost like Jesus is saying, I'm in that. I dwell in that. I live in that. But like you said, I totally agree. There is bigger context that we shouldn't miss the idea that Jesus is also saying, I'm with my people when they come together. But that specific context is in the idea of discipline within the church.
So looking at that same passage there in verse 19, truly I tell you that if 2 of you on earth agree about anything they ask for, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. So that's a question we get sometimes where, well, first of all, this goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning when we had the Facebook question, the Darius who asked, why when I'm praying, why does my mind wander? And we said, hey, maybe pray with someone else. That might help. But also, if 2 people pray together, that doesn't mean that whatever they're praying for is going to happen.
Right. Not necessarily.
Right.
Just means
but it's not a automatic, oh, look, 2 people are people are praying, so got to grant their prayer request.
Right. But we can be confident that as we're together, the Lord is with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to strong arm God into doing what you want just by saying, hey, let's all agree on this one and we'll get it. You agree with my prayer, I'll agree with yours, and we're both going to get it. This is awesome, But also kind of back to what we've been saying is there's a bit of context to this as well, where, he's talking about correction. And then he throws this in there. I tell you the truth, whatever you forbid on earth will be forbidden in heaven. Whatever you permit on earth will be permitted in heaven. That context can't just be thrown out for all of a sudden this new idea of, does that mean I can ask for whatever I want? It's within this context of church discipline. If a person is still refusing to listen, then you bring it forward. And whatever, as a church, if there's the elders and the God's people come together and they say, no, this is not okay, there's what is forbidden on earth is also forbidden in heaven. So it's all according to the will of God and the ways of God and the purposes of God. It's not just a prayer verse for kind of, how do I get my way?
Mm-hmm.
So God's not a genie either. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Did that help, Elva?
Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for calling.
Yep. 888-564-6173.
Before we go to another question,
Yes.
I'm gonna bring up something a little bit, I don't know, might create a little bit of controversy.
Ooh,
We never do that. We never do that on this.
But it's so yesterday was Martin Luther King Day, correct? And Phil, you on your church Instagram, you guys had a few different things that were talking about MLK and the day and so forth. And I put something out there. I have this beautiful. It's like a picture of Martin Luther King that was done in this interesting art where it's burned into a piece of wood. So the artist basically does his artwork with a flame, and my sister got it for me years ago, and it's beautiful. I love it. So anyway, I posted a picture of it, made a couple comments. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because yesterday I saw more. I just saw like so much negative stuff about MLK Day coming through on social media and Christians. I saw one well-known Christian pastor basically just saying Martin Luther King wasn't even a Christian. Why would you honor him in any way, shape, or form? But I saw a number of them, not just one. I saw probably a half a dozen of those things, and honestly, a couple of black. I don't know if they were pastors or apologists, and they were essentially saying the same thing. And, I thought about it and I thought, okay, we know that Martin Luther King theologically, at least for much of his life, was, he was trained in liberal theology, and he pretty much embraced liberal theology. He, he didn't believe in the virgin birth and so forth. Now, as he got older and, closer to the time of his assassination, I don't know where his theological views went. I don't know if they became more, conservative, more biblical, or not. Okay, and I agree that liberal theology is not good. The virgin birth is, I think the virgin birth is essential. But anyway, this is why I'm bringing it up, because I think we should be able to recognize that even in our theological disagreements with people, that their contribution to just, humanity is worth honoring and recognizing when it is, an honorable, good, righteous, just thing. And I couldn't help but think that yes, okay, so theologically, he was liberal. He rejected certain things, or I don't know. He was a work in progress. So it seems to me that toward the end of his life, that there was somewhat of a change. But anyway, regardless of that, the thing that I really thought about, though, that this is the controversy. That's the thing that probably will get me in trouble. But okay, so here's a guy who is, he's fighting an incredible evil in the culture of racism, like bona fide racism, like not fake racism, like we. Sometimes people today, everybody's a racist if you don't agree with them. But it was real racism that he was fighting against, right? And I thought, man, okay, so he's got, let's just go with the virgin birth. He's denying the virgin birth, but he's fighting a just and a righteous cause, and he's not, he's fighting it in the best way possible. he's fighting it peacefully, and he's trying to persuade people. But I thought, and there are people who are opposing him who believe in the virgin birth, but yet they also believe that it's just fine to be a racist. And I thought, there's more to this thing than meets the eye, and I think that we have to really think more deeply about things sometimes. And that's like when I saw especially the guy. I will leave him unnamed, but flat out, in kind of an arrogant way. Martin Luther King wasn't even a Christian. And I thought, this is what you want to be saying on MLK Day? Okay, I guess some people do. So anyway, Phil, you posted a number of things from your church in honor of Dr. King. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the irony, and this is, listen, I'm always in trouble, so I don't really care. It's good. The irony is, like, we're expected on one hand to say, well, we don't vote for a principled person, but we vote for the results. Mm-hmm. So then apply the same approach to an MLK, like you just said. Okay, we don't honor the person for the person. Like, to me, I wasn't alive. I was born after he had already been killed. Mm-hmm. So I think to most of us, MLK Day isn't just about MLK. It's kind of like the whole idea of like civil rights.
Yes,
and
exactly.
like our nation took a step forward in the right direction, and it was like, oh, this is a good thing. It came at a hard cost. It came at it wasn't just one person, and so to me, it's super offensive that people. Like, if we want to argue the theology of MLK, let's do it. Yeah. Like, I got no problem with that. Like, if we want to have that, but to kind of make it like, he's a dishonorable or this shouldn't even exist. People are coming out of the woodworks feeling very comfortable to make very, very things they should not be saying out loud. People are now, our new norm is you can say whatever you feel out loud, and the shocker, the greater shock value, it's okay. And I think it's super disrespectful. Again, if you want to argue, if we want to talk about the theology, let's do it. I got no problem. Yeah. But the person brought a movement, and the movement is what we're really celebrating.
That's what we're celebrating, right? Yeah. And whether or not he, retained his liberal views on things, all the way. I mean, obviously he didn't expect to die, even though when you listen to his final speech, it's almost like he had a premonition that he was going to die, talking about, we're going to get there. I don't know if I will, be there with you. I mean, that is such a, man, that whole speech. And I think he was powerful. He was murdered the next day, I think. So, I just think, like you said, he represents something. On one side, he represents a horrific mindset that existed in our nation for many, 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 many years. He's opposing that, but on the other hand, he represents justice. I mean, this is justice. That. So I think that's what we honor. I didn't post a picture saying, "Man, I loved his theology." I want to lay hold of that perspective, but I honor the person and what he did, and I
the
think,
movement that was birthed. I mean, listen, isn't Gandhi a hero? But he's Hindu. I don't agree with his religion, but like the result of a life, regardless of their faith, is pretty impressive, and it's something that you could say, I honor that, I respect that. Yeah,
and I mean, he was a Marxist. He was this. I mean, those are all the kinds of comments that were being said yesterday. But
that's sad.
This is really going to get me in trouble. But honestly, I think if you were an African American person before the time of the civil rights, and now Marxism has a certain appeal. Right? The appeal of Marxism is equality. At least that's what it claims. It never delivers, but that's what it claims.
Right.
But it honestly probably sounded like a better alternative to what many African Americans were living through at the time.
That's right.
Well, that's what they were hoping for, was some kind of equality, right? So, I just think, like, again, I'm talking about Christians coming out and making these kinds of statements, Christian leaders making these kinds of statements. It's like, the man, he died in 1968. And yes, his legacy goes on. And can't we just honor what he did? Why do we have to make it into a big thing to fight about?
Yeah.
I think too, like, remember, this was the same time of like liberation theology was becoming a really big deal in South America.
Yeah.
And he was highly influenced by that. And as a way of kind of pushing that aside, we start to put these extreme ideas. Oh, they're just this, they're just that. And it's a way of like minimizing the impact by, it's like, oh, well, he didn't believe this, so I'm supposed to throw everything else out. And it's just super disrespectful. We should be able to have a day. Listen, I have one Savior and it's Jesus, but there's people that make an impact and we want to honor them as Americans, and we should be allowed to do that. It should be good.
Liberal theology aside, we've also heard the argument that, he wasn't a very moral man. He had some failures in his life, and that's another reason. That proves he's not a Christian. So why should we honor him? You hear that too?
Yeah,
We've
heard about a few other pastors that have had some struggles and
some kings of Israel that struggled too.
I mean, these days, when it comes to the moral thing, it's it's kind of hard for evangelicals to point the finger.
We're struggling, man. Yeah. We're struggling.
So anyway, like I said, that was probably a little bit controversial, but sometimes you just gotta.
Well, the good news is I'm not on tomorrow, so have fun tomorrow, guys.
Well, Ed'll be on tomorrow.
Is Ed on? Oh, yeah. I'm so excited.
Yeah. He'll make it fun.
He'll make it fun, that's for sure. All right. Well, Phil Metzger, we'll talk to you next week because you're not here this Thursday either. So we'll see you then. And Pastor Brian, we'll see you and Ed Stetzer tomorrow here on Pastor's Perspective. If you weren't able to call in today or we couldn't get to your question, please write it down so you don't forget it and then call us tomorrow. We open up the studio lines about 7 minutes before 3 o'clock, and those studio lines are 888-564-6173. We're going to archive today's episode online, Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify if you want to check it out. Share it with a friend, and we'll talk to you tomorrow, right? Yes.
Right, and Ed will be here to help you with the phone number tomorrow.
Yes, because obviously I can't do it right. So, Ed, we need you, man. Be here. What's that phone number? So, God bless you guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Pastor's Perspective.